G'day guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. I do hope you enjoy today's bloody good content, and with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie. Let's get right into it. Cheers. Posted by user Busy Astral Projecting, titled, Am I the asshole here for telling my 23 female boyfriend 24 that it's his fault if he misses our flights and that I'll continue without him? So my boyfriend and I planned a trip for the end of the summer months ago. Last night, we were still trying to decide how we'd get to the airport. When my mum told me that she could take us before work, I told my boyfriend, who lives 30 minutes from my house, to be at my house no later than 6 a.m. for my mother to drive us to the airport at 6:15. He promised that he would be there at around 5:45. This morning, he was nowhere to be seen or heard from until around 6:20. He told me that his phone fell and he didn't hear it. By then, my mum had to leave and take just me, or she'd be late to work. I told him that he should drive to the airport or get an Uber. His mum decides that she will drive him an hour to the airport since he was too late for my mum to take us. He gets to the airport a little later than me, and I check in our bags. We get to the bag drop, and he realizes that he doesn't have his ID. His wallet is at his house, which is about an hour from the airport. That is like number one on the checklist for things to have. How do you not have that? What's going on? I tell him that I'm going to continue to TSA and to go to the gate. His mum is going back to get his wallet, which will obviously take a while. I tell him that I'm getting on the flight regardless, and that if he misses it, then it's a result of his own mishaps. He then begins to ask me what to do if he misses it. I tell him that he's an adult and should figure out a way to make it to our destination by contacting customer service. I planned everything for the trip, down to the flights and travel arrangements. I feel like at this point, I've done all I can do to ensure a successful and smooth trip, and I don't feel as if it's my responsibility to do damage control for him if he misses the flight. There is no refund for the Airbnb that we split the price for if we do not go. Am I the asshole here for continuing without him? In the comments, is he like this in other aspects of life? Honestly, it sounds exhausting. If so, some time alone will help you gain some perspective. Enjoy your trip, alone or otherwise. And OP says, he's often late, which is why I told him an earlier time specifically to avoid that. I called him endlessly, and he didn't wake up until way after the time that we agreed upon. His mum had to go to him and wake him up. I told her that I was going to leave without him, and she said he was up late. So was I? I already told him that I was getting exhausted of planning literally everything, and that I want him to begin to take some charge and responsibility, and then this happens. Thank you. Sounds like maybe he should go on a trip with his mum instead, since she's so willing to put up with his shit. OP says, this is a pattern that I've noticed from her repeatedly. It's definitely making me reconsider some things now. It feels like you are mothering him, since you need to keep on calling him to wake up and keep up with the itinerary for the trip. Does he always need to rely on other people to remind him? OP says, he has overslept and been late for different things on multiple occasions. He does work hard and used to work night shifts, so I let it slide. But he didn't work yesterday and took a nap during the day. For context, I didn't take a nap. I did errands all day and stayed up late for online class, and I still woke up on time. Get on that plane. OP says, I'm going to board. When we were checking our bags, he asked me how to put the bag tag on. At that point, I was over it and already decided that I'm taking this vacation with him or not. He's actually leaving for Marine Boot Camp on September the 3rd, which is why we planned the trip. OP clarifies, I have ADHD as well, so I understand. I'll forget where I put a hair clip that's in my hair. I tell him to set multiple alarms all the time, and he has an Apple Watch that's never changed. To another comment, OP says, I have ADHD, so I completely understand. The issue with that is, he doesn't really advocate for himself. He has struggled with mental health issues and refused to go to therapy. He has cystic acne and only this year saw a dermatologist because I called around places in our state until I found someone that would schedule an appointment. Mini update 16 hours later, OP says, he's here. I told him I don't want to talk about it tonight. Mini update 2, next day, OP says, there are no bad vibes. We had a conversation and he agrees with my concerns. On to your question, OP, am I the asshole here for telling my boyfriend that it's his fault if he misses our flight? No, that's just being completely real. And that's not in a, oh my god, people can't handle my brutal honesty, I just like to keep it real, kinda real. He needs to have life hit him hard a few times, and he needs to have his mum not enabling him anymore. I would hope that going to the Marines and going through all that training will restructure his life into a way that he isn't reliant on others to do everything for him. Because from what it sounds like, you've also been enabling him. Like, he should have booked that dermatologist by himself and learnt to have his own individual ability to conduct himself. He needs to want to have agency over his life, but when other people continue to enable him, he's just going to continue falling into the same patterns he always has, and that leads to situations like this, where he didn't even think to get his wallet, to get his ID, and will miss his flight. You telling him that it's his fault doesn't make you an asshole, but I do wonder if it's enough for him to change. Or if at this point it's even necessary for you to do anything, since he's going to the Marines anyway. And now, on to the update. I think the trip, despite the mishaps and the conclusion that I'm going to come to at the end of this note, was eye-opening for me, and I'm grateful for it. I have had a track record of misjudging and misinterpreting behaviors, and I promised myself that it wouldn't happen again, so I set my boundaries early. The trip began with him oversleeping, and therefore not meeting me at my house to carpool to the airport. That's not a heinous act in and of itself, but something that has happened multiple times on different occasions. Once he finally awoke and met me at the airport late, he discovered that he didn't have his wallet, the most important thing to have when traveling. Wondering how someone could forget something so essential, I waited for him to look for it to no avail. He called his mother, blaming her for rushing him in the morning, which could have been avoided by him being a responsible adult and waking up on time and preparing his things the night before and not taking any accountability. Luckily, she came to his rescue, but not soon enough. He had to rebook his flight and arrived later that day. In the process, still asking me what gate number the flight was, while the gate number was displayed on a screenshot that he sent me. Instead of using the information that I spoon-fed to him, I organized the entire trip, down to transportation, flights, accommodations, and more. I gave him a small ball to carry, and he still dropped it. In the process of dropping that ball, he failed to take accountability for his actions. I should have known how the rest of the trip would go. During the trip, there were multiple instances that solidified the feelings that were already looming. Outbursts of anger that were followed by childlike behavior and excuses. When confronted, there were only excuses and a lack of accountability. All followed by, "But I'm trying so hard. What am I doing wrong?" Despite the issue being directly explained. He lost his debit card, and despite my efforts in tracing his steps, calling businesses we visited, and everything, he stormed off ahead of me in range, leaving me behind, walking alone on the streets. When I explained why that bothered me and was unacceptable, here came more excuses, and rambling about how he didn't mean for it to happen but still did it. While walking to different restaurants, he cussed at men who would even look at me, stare them down, and then almost cause a scene. He misplaced his wallet before dinner and acted in the same rageful manner, cussing, slamming things, throwing items around, instead of calmly looking for his wallet. I sat there in disbelief, as this behavior had not been something that I'd seen before. I told him that this was unattractive and demonstrated a lack of control and emotional maturity, and I got more excuses. There are probably more examples that I could use, but they're fleeing my mind. It's the night before departure. I'm in tears. It started at the beach. We decided to take a night swim. All was well until he lost his ring in the ocean. Oh no, OP's gonna end up just like Deagle. Luckily, I was right next to him, so I was able to quickly use my hands and grab it. He got out to put it in the sand, which was smart, right? And once we were done, he got upset that I sent his mum a video of him dancing. I walked away because I didn't want to hear it. He then called me back to tell me that he lost his ring in the sand. We looked for the ring, and by we, I meant me on my hands and knees and him walking around with a flashlight, and I finally found it. We began to walk back to the room, and I say, "Can I say something serious? I'm beginning to feel like your mother sometimes, keeping track of your things and helping you do damage control." He responds with a lot. How I didn't have to help him. I hate that so much. "Oh, I never asked you to do any of those things." Hey man, sorry for caring about you, huh? How I don't acknowledge everything he's been doing, like calling Ubers and paying for things. How I'm not like his mum, and how he didn't ask me to do anything. In anger, I tell him screw you and walk away. Yes, I know this is unkind, and I did apologize for my behavior later. I walk to the room alone. He begs me to talk when he gets there, and I don't want to. I shower and tell him one thing. This trip has really made me reconsider whether I want to be in the relationship. He goes berserk, begging me to please talk to him, saying that I don't acknowledge all the good he's doing, on and on. I tell him that I don't wish to have the conversation, don't wish to be touched, and want to be left alone. Here, I also apologize for my rude words without making any excuses. He tells me that I'm always rude. Prior to dating, I did use harsh words when he showed up to my house unexpectedly and demonstrated other signs of emotional immaturity and ignored my wishes. He begins to try to hug me. I tell him to get off of me. He continues to touch me as I try to lay down in the bed, trying to hug and hold my hand. Here, I break down in tears. I run to the bathroom and begin to sob. I come out as he's continually crying and begging me to talk to him. He begins to raise his voice and make a scene. I run to grab the pull-out bed from the closet to sleep on. He blocks me and pushes the bed, telling me that I don't need it. I get increasingly aggravated because I'm being blocked and tell him to move out of my way and to leave me alone. He doesn't and protests by sitting on the pull-out bed. I rip the comforter off the actual bed and make a bed on the floor. He takes the blanket and pillows from under me, saying that he won't let me sleep on the floor. He continues to yell in my ear for me to get up, that he loves me, put everything behind us, while he keeps pulling the pillow that I reclaimed. He has finally left me alone on the floor, leaving for the airport in 3 hours. In the comments, OP clarifies, "I was thinking about changing my flight, honestly. I'm still trying to figure out the logistics of a breakup, like how and when that could happen." And after OP checks on the other flights, the flight we have is the earliest of the day. There are others, but no confirmed seats, only standby. A commenter says, "That's only going to escalate in future arguments. Get home safe, please, and never see this man again." OP replies, "It's concerning because the type of rage that was ignited in me is a type that has only come out with past exes. Being cornered and having my personal space violated is something I cannot do at all. I will say that I did try to push him out of the way. Maybe I shouldn't have and raised my voice because I was afraid that his yelling would get us kicked out. Our reservation has a quiet hours policy." I think that there may be a part of that policy where a DV situation is an exception to the rule. But even then, I can imagine the cops coming up, kicking you out and being like, "Nah, this is actually a domestic. This is a civil issue. It's out of our hands. Now piss off the property." Someone else says, "Get the hell out of where you were staying." OP says, "I was thinking about this. The Airbnb is under my name. I already know that I can't really trust him with following the closing procedures, so I'm worried about incurring a fee if he leaves something incomplete. Also, if I get up now, I know he will try to prevent me from leaving. We will still be on the same flight in the case that he does get there on time. He is still awake now when the Uber comes in an hour." You had every right to express your anger and frustration. Women are raised from girlhood to be nice and get along and keep the peace. The time for that is over. It is now screw this shit time. Stop being nice, be blunt, be rude if you have to. You need to get him the hell away from you, and you need to never believe his sniveling, "I'm trying" bullshit again. OP says, I told him F you earlier when I told him that I felt like I was his mum, and he said, you didn't have to help me look for the ring. I just asked for help. He said I was rude and that he would never speak to me like that, and that his friends tell him to leave me because of how rude I always am to him. That's some gaslighting right there. That did not happen. She is not rude to you all the time, you liar. He also called me rude because I left the room and had the key, and he had to get someone else to let him in. I admit that I have cussed him out prior to dating because of his emotional instability. Him messaging me incessantly and me saying, leave me the F alone, or things along the lines of, you need to get therapy and leave me alone. I just could not take one more lame excuse for a concern of mine. If you feel unsafe, record a future conversation with him and send it to his mum. OP says, I just thought of this, hours later, although I do feel like it won't change anything. When he walked away from me the other day, I told her, and she told me to just be happy with him and be in love and work things out. She makes excuses for him constantly. That one didn't even sound like an excuse. It sounded like, just shut up and deal with him. I don't want to deal with him anymore, so you should have to deal with him. When I read your first post, I was concerned. He sounded like a teenage gamer, but during the holiday, he was very aggressive. It's time to get out and just block him on everything. Why I talked about talking to his mum was because she has enabled his behavior for his entire life. She knows what he's like. OP says, yeah, there was an instance recently when we went to a soccer game where he was aggressive. He had drinks, and some guy was bumping into him. I was sober and believed that it wasn't intentional, as I witnessed the entire thing, but he swore the guy was bumping into him on purpose. It was a crowded game, and we were exiting. Everyone was touching someone. He began to heavily body check the guy back with extreme force. He went to the bathroom, and the guy came up to me and told me that my boyfriend is going to meet the wrong person one day. So embarrassing. I should have audio taped. I feel stupid now. However, I feel like she would definitely make an excuse for him nonetheless. I meant this showing up unexpectedly and ignoring your wishes. What got you past the red flags and into this? I'm not trying to be mean, I just want to understand. OP says, I guess the apologies and giving the benefit of the doubt that so many people were upset that I didn't give him in my initial post. I do like to give a first and even second chance. I'm not perfect, and I don't expect my partners to be. He apologized for the previous behavior and made certain strides in areas, but obviously not the ones that matter the most. Serious question, is he an alcoholic? He dated one, and on a mini vacation he acted just like this, a petulant child. Or is he just weaponized immaturity? OP says, in the past he has used alcohol to self-medicate and deal with emotions. On one instance, his mum had to drive to his Apple location and she found him drunk, asleep in a car outside a friend's house when he promised that he would be home soon. I'm not sure if the frequency or amount of his drinking would warrant a formal diagnosis of alcoholism, but both of his parents had issues with alcohol during his entire childhood. His mum says that he always gets like that when he drinks as well. We don't drink together often as a couple, but when we do, this has never happened before. We've just gone to clubs and had fun. Mini update a few hours later. I'm at the airport now. When I left, he was asleep. He hasn't messaged me or read my texts, and his location isn't moving. I'm assuming he's still asleep, boarding in 10 minutes. Several hours later, I left for the airport alone. When I left, he was asleep. When I boarded the plane, he texted me saying that I should have woken him up so that he didn't miss the flight. He said that I should have at least woken him up because apparently his phone was on silent. He actually overslept because I left while he was sleeping to get to the airport. He missed the flight. I sent him a text explaining everything and did let him know to not come to my house or I will call the police. Another few hours later, OP says, thank you. He's currently texting my mum long paragraphs trying to explain his behavior. I told her to ignore him. And OP clarifies that she broke up with him. I did it via text. Look, I know that was a long and drawn-out story, but That was a satisfying ending for me, at least. At least she knows her worth and is away from this little child, okay? It sucks that, yes, OP gave him so many different chances and got into a relationship with him, recognizing all the red flags previous to this, but sometimes we have to make a series of errors and mistakes in order to learn our lesson. Sometimes we just have to let the reality of several gigantic mistakes in a row hit us in the face and tell internet strangers about it in order for us to know not to do that again. I don't fault you, OP, for staying in a relationship with this man. It's obvious that you saw something in him that we didn't, and I can't fault you for that, but, now you know to stay away from him because he doesn't want to change and he won't change. And now he's going to be a Marine, and those problems that he has can now follow him into Marine training. Good luck to the man. But at least I really hope that these problems don't spring up again for you in the future, with the added benefit of him being a Marine and being worse than he was before. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Our next post is by user Classic Contexts, titled, "Am I the asshole here for wanting to use the hall pass my wife gave me 5 years ago when she cheated on me? My wife, 35 female, and I, 35 male, have been married for 10 years. We have 2 children, 9 female and 7 male. 5 years ago, I found out that my wife had an affair. I felt crushed and numb because I loved my wife a lot. Her affair partner told me about it when my wife called it off. The affair lasted 1 month, and my wife had called it off because she felt really guilty about it. When I confronted my wife about it, she was very remorseful and didn't deny anything. She said she would do anything, follow any reconciliation steps I asked, and just begged to not break up our family. I asked her why she cheated, and she gave no excuses, and she just said that it was for the thrill. My first reaction was to divorce, but after sitting on it for a week, I decided to just stick it out for our family, and because I still loved my wife. My wife was very thankful, and she even told me that I had a hall pass that I could use whenever I wanted. Over the next year or so, my wife followed the reconciliation steps, which included therapy, getting sober, quitting her job, and a bunch of other things. I had forgiven my wife, but I could never forget. I would occasionally just replay in my mind my wife cheating on me, and that always hurt a lot. Fast forward to today, and my family's doing great. However, I have struck a friendship with Melissa, 32 female, who I met at a bookstore. We had common interests in books for existentialism, metaphysics, and similar books. I don't know how, but when we met, we just clicked. We initially met every week at the bookstore to just discuss books and life, but we started talking more about our personal life, and we then started going on coffee dates and brunches. One more thing we had in common was that Melissa too was married to her husband who had cheated on her many years ago. It's been almost a year since I met her, and Melissa has made it up front that she has very strong feelings for me, and that she's never had these feelings for anyone else ever in her life. I too have a lot of feelings for her, but I feel guilty about it, so I haven't told her about them yet. I haven't crossed any physical boundaries, and I don't intend to. We only hug and hold hands. But I do want to explore more of an emotional connection to her because I've never felt like this ever. I remember that my wife gave me a hall pass 5 years ago when she cheated on me. Would I be the asshole to use that hall pass to explore the emotional connection that I have with Melissa? In the comments, Heart According 5241 says, "The fact Melissa is cheating on her husband doesn't make her better than your wife. Makes her worse than the wife. It's been going on for a year, and she's admitted feelings, not breaking it off. Why did Melissa not divorce the husband before sharing her feelings? All the adults in this story are assholes." I'd argue that the wife is no longer an asshole, as she has done serious work on herself. But surely OP and his affair partner are assholes? Yes. Especially because the husband doesn't want to explore only the physical, but the emotional. That's really effed in my opinion. He got a physical hall pass, not an emotional one. And if he's wanting to explore an emotional relationship like that, he needs to divorce first and foremost. A hall pass is for a one-night stand with someone you're attracted to, but that's it. A hall pass is not to deepen an emotional connection that you have with someone by adding sex into the mix. I would just tell your wife that you want a divorce because chances are your wife will ask you for one when you tell her about Melissa. She's definitely going to find out that this is someone that you're already in love with. Just be honest and say that you never really forgave/forgot the affair and that you want a divorce. Because chances are, if you do use your whole pass with Melissa, you'll probably want to end things with your wife since you and Melissa already have feelings for each other. She doesn't seem like someone that you want to just use for sex and never see again. You know, like how whole passes usually work. And honestly, it's clear to see that you never really got over your wife's affair, or you wouldn't be holding on to the idea of being able to cash in a whole pass 5 years later. Not that you or anyone needs to get over an affair by any means, I just mean that you didn't truly forgive her, or you wouldn't feel the need to do the same to her. Even if she said that you could, because deep down, I'm sure she didn't really mean that. No one is truly okay with giving their partner a pass to sleep with whoever they want. I don't want to repeat what everyone else here has already said, OP, so I feel like, yes, you would be the asshole here for wanting to use the whole pass. I think that there are definitely cowardly emotions and actions being done by both you and Melissa because, you know, it's a fear of what if it doesn't work with this new shiny object and I throw away the object that I've had for the last X amount of years of my life that I'm married to. You can't have both, and it's unfair to your wife to continue this with Melissa. It's doubly unfair to ask to use that whole pass with her because you're just going to out the relationship that you have with this woman. So really, you only have the option of completely cutting things off with Melissa and never seeing her again and forgetting this ever happened. Morally, you would be very much bankrupt for not coming clean about it, but it is something that you can take to the grave if you want to, or just divorce your wife and get with Melissa and take a chance. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least, you know, you're not continuing to hurt your wife. And now, on to the update. Thank you to everyone for the advice. I've decided to not use the whole pass as I don't really feel too great about it, and it wouldn't be fair to my wife. I want to clarify what I meant by using the whole pass. I had no intentions of proceeding with any sexual activity, but instead deepening my emotional connection with Melissa and may have at worst included kissing. She tried to kiss me once, but I rejected it because I feel guilty about it. I texted Melissa and let her know, and while she was disappointed, she asked if we could still remain friends like we are now, and I told her sure, and she was very happy about it. I do like hanging out with Melissa a lot and talking about life. I also get flutters and excited energy, and I like that a lot. In the comments, quotes, I had no intentions of proceeding with any sexual activity, but instead deepening my emotional connection with Melissa. Dog, that's not a whole pass. That's you basically starting a relationship separate from your wife. You have two and only two choices here that have integrity. 1. Both you and Melissa get divorced and then be together. 2. Cut all ties with Melissa forever. Anything else and you're going to hurt yourself and everyone that you care about. Lol, this is heading towards a full-blown relationship despite what OP says. My gut feeling is that if he didn't have 2 kids with his current wife, he would have already left for Melissa. I don't think that OP ever fully forgave his wife, or perhaps he did, but the cheating killed the romance and affection that he had for her, so he unconsciously started seeking that with someone else. I find it hilarious all these people are arguing over what the definition of a whole pass is. Maybe he has a whole pass that's stamped entitled to one affair. Or maybe that one reads, just a one-night stand, jerk. I suppose if it's tit for tat, it's a month-long one. OP's wife cheated, he's emotionally cheating with someone whose husband cheated. They are all lovely, cheating people, and they should create more dramatic stories for us. And that's where I'm going to end today's story, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.